Hello and welcome to today's Founder Insight series. Today I'm coming to you with Sarah Jane, co-founder of Tinybeans. How are you, SJ?
I am very well, thank you.
Very good. SJ and I work together in our time at a Circle in slash Well. So SJ, co-founder of Tinybeans, tell us a little bit about what that was and yeah, just a little bit of background.
Yeah, so I mean, what it is. So Tiny Beans is still very much like alive and kicking. I've actually exited, so no longer involved in the day-to-day running of the company. That's now in the safe hands of awesome new CEO called Joffy. Um, but it started in 2011. My co-founder Steve and I founded it the end of 2011. And what it is, for anyone that doesn't know, is essentially a smart baby journal. So it's a place to put all your pictures, photos, videos, milestones of your kids, keep it in one safe, secure place, and safely share it with your closest family and friends. So essentially, it's a private social network. Um, stop, keep enables you to keep everything in one place and stops all your Facebook friends having to see all your baby pictures, which isn't good for anyone, not good for your kids and not good for your friends. So, that's it in a nutshell. It wasn't actually my idea. It was my co-founder, Stephen O. Young's idea. Kind of calls reverse sexism because everyone assumes it was mine because I'm the woman founder, but he came up with the idea originally, and it was kind of a mix of two things. It was a one of his sons was struggling with his speech development. So, on the one hand, he created this milestone tracker. And at the same time, his third son was born, and he wanted to find a way to easily share photos of him. And he said he was too lazy to create a blog like some of his friends. And so what he did was create an app that I think he called 365 photos. Was that it? 365 snaps, where it was essentially like putting a picture of your kids up every day to share with family. And I'm so glad that was his idea of lazy, because and then he had the idea to combine the two. It was like that daily engagement from the photos encouraged you to add the milestones when they occurred, and then get great information about where your kids at and their life stage. That was the
Fantastic.
original idea.
Yes, and
And you
I've
said when we
experienced
spoke earlier that your sister used it, right?
my sister-in-law. Yes, yes,
Right.
she used Tiny Beans, and I was part of the updates and got to see the girls, her two daughters, grow. And yeah, it was a really good experience. So I could
Good to
see
hear.
it being popular. In fact, so popular that it ended up being listed on the ASX. And yeah, you saw really good success. So um, looking back on that
Hmm.
journey that you went through, I'm sure there's probably a dozen, if not more, things that you look back on and go, geez, I wish I'd known that earlier. But if you could think of one thing that founders out there listening to this might benefit from, that you look back on and you go, oh, I wish I'd known that earlier, what would it be?
So many things. But I think the one thing that sticks out is I wish I had maybe backed myself a bit more. And by that, I mean, like, when I look back on things I wish I'd done differently, often I kind of knew deep down what the right thing to do was, and then often got convinced by people who maybe had more experience than me, but maybe not enough insight into our particular business, that there was a right way to do things. And I think that is my advice, that there's a few exceptions, but very rarely is there one way to do things. And anyone that tells you that, I don't think they're being genuine. I think there are so many different ways to do this. So many, I can't think of many rules that you should keep. I think about what I do now, which is more on the positioning and messaging side, and people love to throw a rule out there, like never, be negative. I saw a site in your messaging. I saw a site yesterday that was so good. It's a an app in the UK that enables you to connect with friends and arrange stuff. And they put a 1-star review on their homepage and basically saying this, suck it to this user because we've got like thousands of other 5-star reviews. And it just grabbed you and made you laugh and made you then read the good reviews. Like, so I'm sidetracking, but there are so few concrete rules. There's so few absolute ways to do things. And I think I just wish I trusted myself more about what I knew was right. And I got better at that as time gone on, pushing back, backing myself and holding your ground. So I would tell all founders, surround yourself with people, not who are going to tell you you're doing things, great and right, but back you, your intuition, and help you get to the right answer, not telling you that you haven't done this before. Listen to me. This is the way you should do things. I don't think that's who you want to surround yourself with. Founders need support. They need encouragement. They need motivation, and people who'll help them find the right answers, not tell them they're wrong.
Yeah. And I think reading between the lines there, it's like, don't just have mentors, also have coaches. Because the coaches ask the right questions,
Yeah.
mentors give good advice. So coaches help you draw out stuff from inside. It's self-growth and self-development and enabling you to better trust yourself.
I've never really had a business coach as such. Actually, I did have one for a bit, but mainly I think that another piece of advice I give people is I think people have come to me asking like how to find a mentor. And the one thing I say as well is that they're out there. It's almost like you don't need, it's not a two-way relationship often. Like I've got so many people who give me good advice that possibly don't know I exist, right? There's so much great advice out there. Like there's great blogs you can read. There's people you can follow on LinkedIn. That you can almost build your own mentor network of great advice that you can piece together and take things from without having to enter into anything formal. And I have got a great mentor now, but that just came about so organically. It's almost like looking for a relationship, and then lots of people said, I've met people for very short amounts of times, and they're like, will you be my mentor? And it just feels very weird. It's almost like, will you be my boyfriend after like one date, right? It's something that I think needs to grow and feel natural, and it needs to be a two-way invested relationship. And that's very much what happened with the people I can now consider a mentor, but I definitely didn't formalize that. It just happened. And in the meantime, I filled the gap with the vast amount of knowledge there is out there, and created my own little mentor network. But I think it's just I think whether it's a coach, I think I've just always surrounded myself with people who will give me really, really brutal feedback in a really kind way. Like, for example, I've just, for the first time, like so much of my work recently has come about word of mouth. And I finally, after a couple of years, thought I should probably put a website together, which was annoyingly hard to do for someone who, tells people how to talk about your value and talk about what makes you different. I seem to be very good at telling other people how to do it and not so great at doing it for myself. It's really, really, really hard. So what I did was just put a first draft together and then send it to 5 really, really trusted friends who I knew would not tell me what I wanted to hear, but would tell me what I needed to know. And my brother-in-law, for example, came back with like, God, if I could, the length of the email is probably like 2 sides of A4 about how terrible I am at selling myself and what I should be doing better. And it was exactly what I needed to hear. So I think that would be the advice. Surround yourself with people who are not going to do the nice thing. They're going to do the kind thing and have your back and do the best thing for you. So shout out to my brother-in-law, Matt. He's and a couple of other people who really helped make it a lot better.
Yeah, awesome. And so don't surround yourself with yes people who always tell you what they think you
No.
want to hear. Yeah, surround
And I
yourself
think,
with.
the first step in that is having to show that you're open to feedback. Because I think it's really easy to say, but like even like one of my really good friends who gave me feedback, and someone I really trust from a work perspective, was like at the bottom of the email, like, I hope that wasn't too harsh. So straight away I'm like, oh my God, thank you so much. That is why I love you. Like, I really, really appreciate it. Telling me what I need to know rather than want to hear. Like straight away said that, so that show that you're really, really open to it. So I think that you have to, it's a two-way thing. It only gets better the more you show people how much you appreciate that. Lots of people say it and they really don't want feedback. So
And it's
yeah,
so important as a founder to be open to feedback.
yeah,
It's the only way that you're going to learn and
only
grow
way. And
and
I
get
think
better.
people are hesitant because they think that they should have all the answers.
Mm,
And it's hard. Like I felt like I should, given what I do now, which is, keep positioning and messaging, I felt like I should be able to do it better for myself. But I realized, gave myself some grace, realized it's hard to do it for yourself and just put it out there. Not, I think lots of people don't want to put themselves out there, right? You feel like you should be expert at something or yeah, you should be able to put something out there that's perfect. And I think that's a fallacy. Like just get really comfortable putting it out
yeah,
there,
be
getting feedback, and
vulnerable.
that will make everything better.
Mm, yeah. And so a couple of really good takeaways out of that. Surround yourself with trusted advisors who are willing to tell you what you need to hear, not
Mhm.
what they think you'd like to hear,
Yeah.
but also be willing to receive and accept feedback and act on the feedback as well. So there's people who say, "Oh, thank you so much for telling me that," and then don't do anything with it. It's
Absolutely. And
so important to act on it as well.
also, okay, I got a couple of pieces of feedback that I didn't quite agree with, and but not agree with, but I was like, oh, I could do it slightly differently. But instead of making people feel like I ignored them, just say, oh, thank you for that. I totally get it. The reason I've done it, I decided to do it this way, and tell people, right? It's like, people send out all those culture surveys, and I think that's why lots of workplaces get really frustrated because you give the feedback and then nothing happens with it. Like even if you decide not to do something, like let people know why, just so they know that they've been heard and seen. I think that's super key as well. But yeah, I mean, but I think it's a balance. Like even though I asked for brutal feedback, I mean like brutal honesty. I think some people mistake that with just being super harsh. Like you can have
Mm,
brutal honesty and be kind. Like you don't need to tear people down or make them feel stupid or I'm sure there's a very small percentage of people that work really well when they feel like super pressurized, but I don't think it's the majority. I think most people want to feel supported and backed. And I'm certainly in that category. So brutal honesty, but deliver kindly, like that's a skill as well. And
yeah,
luckily, like you said, that's part of the trust, right? The people that I've really benefited from, even in the last couple of weeks, have absolutely been that. Like I know they're doing it, so to really help me out, and that's a real gift.
awesome. Now, with Tinybeans, you went through the journey of listing.
Mhm.
So first, I guess the first question around that was what made you decide to list as
Yeah.
your exit path? And then what were the steps you had to go through to get to the point where you're ready to list?
Yeah, so we didn't choose it as an exit path. It was more as a path to funding. Um, and there's many different options that you can take to fund. I wouldn't say that that's necessarily for everyone. Like there is, now I look back on it, there's a lot of admin and bureaucracy which comes with that maybe didn't realize quite as much going into it. So, it's not for everyone. But the reason we did it was to provide, liquidity to our previous investors, um, set ourselves up for success going forward. And one of the things it did, like that wave of investment enabled us to expand overseas. So I think we listed in April 2017, and then in July I moved to New York. So we'd had a partnership in place in the States that was enabling us to grow at a faster rate over there. And what we decided to do was have kind of sales and marketing product in the US, keep technology, our tech team still in Sydney, and Steve stayed in Sydney, um, and moved to New York to ramp it up there. And the investment from the listing enabled us to do that. So for us, it was kind of a means to an end. And that's why we did it.
Fantastic.
And it
Well,
felt pretty good to ring the bell that day, I have to say. Like it was a pretty cool, like once in a lifetime event. I'll kind of never forget it.
And since then, you mentioned earlier that you're putting yourself out there. You've made a website now. You're kind of going into the services side of things. So Tinybeans was a product. You're now doing services. How have you sort of gone about that transition from product business through to services now?
It was kind of organic. It wasn't that intentional. Like after Tiny Beans and so Steve and I left in beginning of 2020 and had a bit of a break, played around with a couple of things that we didn't really pursue. I think looking back on it, like we didn't go in, we had a team building tool that we played around with, and it certainly wasn't our intention not to really push it as far as we could go. But I think what we realized afterwards, what we really wanted to do was just get back to building something. And it was more an exercise in us like stepping away from being in the leadership team of a listed company and just having fun again, just building something. And whether it probably wasn't the right thing to build in hindsight, but we just like working together and doing something. So we did that for a bit. And then when that kind of eased off, just through contacts, I was talking to people and they were, like, would you help out this company? They're really struggling with their core positioning, their messaging. I think it would really benefit them to have someone like you to talk it through with. So I think that happened with like 2 or 3 companies, and I realized how much I loved it and how much actually the one thing that really helped by doing catch up after Tiny Beans was that it was a chance to pause and like almost gather all the learnings from the Tiny Beans years that often you don't have a chance to do because you're so busy like executing and just hustling and getting stuff done. Like put all the frameworks together, put all my resources together, and realize that where my interest really zoned in on was really helping companies who not so much in the early stage, but the companies that I often got pulled in to help with were often a few years in, growth wasn't quite where they wanted it to be after a number of years, and I need to find a better way of describing it, but almost in a bit of a pickle. Like like what had got them to where they were now probably wasn't going to get them to where they wanted to be. And by bringing more people in, like they hadn't put the frameworks and made sure that everyone was clear on the values and what they are, who they're for, like those really cool things that are foundational, and were wasting a lot of time spinning their wheels with campaigns and messaging that wasn't really reaching the right people and having the impact they wanted it to. So I kind of go in there, and because my being a founder, I've worked across product marketing, product sales, marketing, kind of connecting the dots across all those different parts of the business and hearing their needs and finding a set of positioning and messaging that works for everyone. So it's that.
Yeah, it's such a critical piece of the pie. If you don't get that right,
100%.
if you're not positioning yourself, A, in a way that the market understands, but also B, in a way that accurately represents what you're doing,
Yeah.
then your chances of success are minuscule.
Yeah.
So,
And I think I just love being that kind of outside help, because I know how hard it is when you're in the business every day, no matter, whether you've got a marketing background, whether that's what you've done for other people, when it's your own, it's really hard to kind of take yourself out and see the wood for the trees. And just having someone who can help you do that, help you make it clear. Like one of the biggest things I hear, and it's almost, I think this is like the warning sign that most people realize is it's not even for your customers. It's like you can't even tell a friend what you do. Like you get asked, you meet someone in the pub and they're like, what you do, and they'll find themselves waffling for 3 minutes, and they've just realized they haven't got this pithy, simple, clear way of explaining what they do, why it's important, and for who it is. And
pub
that's kind of,
test.
pardon?
The pub test.
The pub test. I always thought about calling the government pub positioning, like to be able to answer that question, but it doesn't sound quite serious enough. And also, it's not technically for the right person, right? But I think it's super important. If you just can't explain to someone you meet for the first time what you do, it's a really early warning sign. But obviously the most important thing is like your customers, if you can't explain to them, they don't see the value. That's where it is. But yeah, it's amazing how many people, like, as you grow, what used to be simple and you've changed your product a bit and you might have pivoted a bit and made these changes, and suddenly it's really, really hard to articulate things simply. So that's kind of my main skill and what I help people do. So really, really
Yeah.
enjoy it. And it's a lot of like clue finding. Like, it's not obvious, but what the best thing for me, I just finished a 6-month contract, and at the end of it, everyone was like, it just seems so obvious now. Like, nothing was a big shift, nothing was weird, but just being able to package it up so simply and clearly, I think is it's a hard thing to do, that hopefully at the end of it, it looks like it was easy.
And just because you've got product market fit early on, as you say, either your product shifts or the market shifts, and before you know it, you've slipped out of product market
Yep,
fit. So
100%. Like, I
that
always say,
positioning thing, it's
yeah.
constant, you know.
Yeah, and I get, like, for a more established company, I feel like you should absolutely revisit it every 6 months. Like, when you're first launching, I feel like people, like, probably every month, right? Have a check-in at the
Mm.
end of every month. Make sure you're still on track. But definitely at least every 6 months for more established companies. There's, like, 5 main levers of it, and if any, the competitive landscape's almost like the key one. And if anything is majorly shifted in that, you're going to need to shift how you talk about it to show how you're different than anyone else and why more valuable. So absolutely, it's something you should constantly be evaluating.
Fantastic. Well, SJ, before we wrap anything up, is there anything else that you think would be of value to share with our founders?
Um, Something I was working on, like, this week was, like, there's so many great resources out there for positioning and messaging. Like, I could probably drop you 3 that I think people should, the 3 that I kind of rely on the most. If I was gonna, because I think it's a combination of positioning, messaging, and brand story. And April Dunford is my, like, she's the go-to queen for positioning. There's amazing framework that you can easily follow. There's a guy called Andy Raskin, who, another really good resource based in the US, who talks about strategic narrative, which is this having a brand story, a company story, which I think is slightly different to positioning and your product's value. And I think it's really important to have both. He's another really great resource. And Emily Kramer is my, God, she's just so good for B2B marketing. She's got almost like a resource and a framework for everything. So I'd recommend those. But I was trying to think of something that founders can be mulling over in their head to think about whether their positioning is right. I've got to these 3 questions that I think you can keep asking yourself in a circular motion. And they sound pretty obnoxious, but it's really like, what? Like, what am I? If you can't answer what you are, like a tool, a platform, system, that's like, even those basic terms, if you struggle and different people on your team would answer in different ways, you've got a positioning problem. So can you answer the what? Can you answer the so what? Like, you've got these features and it does something, but who cares? Like, actually, no, I've jumped ahead to the next question, but so what? Why is that important? What's the value it brings? A feature is meaningless. It's like, what is it actually? What's the benefit? And then what's the value of that? So what, so what, and who cares? Like, who really wants that product? So I think there's a mistake lots of people make as well, chasing the wrong people and not being super clear. It's like, if you're for everyone, you're for no one. Who really cares about the what you have and the value it brings? And I think you need to keep circling back through those photos. There's no, like, photos, sorry, those questions. Think about Tinybeans again. Because I think you just need to make sure that it lines up each time. It's not like a sequential, you answer this, then this, then this, and it's fixed. Just keep circling back a few times and making sure, like, does the what resonate with the who? So what, so what, who cares? I would ask yourself those questions all the time in your head if I was a founder and CEO. I wish I'd asked myself them more.
Awesome. I think that's really awesome advice. Well, thank you so much for your time today, SJ. I'm sure there's so
Good to
much more
speak
you
to you
could share.
again.
Yeah, it's good to see you. And yes, we'll definitely, I'm sure there's a lot of nuggets there that founders can take away. So thanks for your time.
Yeah,
And
if anyone hears this and wants to talk anything through or got any questions, you can reach out to me on my website. Give me some more brutal, honest feedback. if you
The
want.
website through its paces.
Yeah, geez,
Yep.
honestly. Yeah, kindly. Um, but yeah, it's sjkurtini.com if anyone wants to reach out. More than happy to help.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for your time.
You are welcome. Good to see you.
See ya.